Well, today, Matt asked me to talk about Planned Parenthood, one of our favorite topics to talk about in the pro-life movement, or at least it should be. And we're going to talk about their abortion business and their practices, much of which is very shady. But if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and I'll try to get to them throughout or just wait till the end. But the purpose today is to learn who Planned Parenthood is, why it's important for us to focus on Planned Parenthood, and why we simply do not need them. So, who is Planned Parenthood? I have a video, and I don't know, hopefully you'll be able to hear it. You know what? I might just share. Okay, here we go. Planned Parenthood says
I can't really, the audio is really bad. It's like distorted and stuff.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
on the
well, I guess I'll just send you guys the link because that's been happening. I don't know if Zoom like changed their features or something, but either way, I'm going to, wow, that really messed up everything. Okay, well, then I'll just tell you, who is Planned Parenthood? According to them, they're a network of healthcare providers across the United States who focus on reproductive health care. And we'll go more into detail shortly. But it's important to focus on them because they are America's #1 abortion provider. They account for 35% of the nation's abortions, while independent abortion facilities and hospitals make up the rest. And they make over $140 million a year just on abortions. These are huge statistics, and this is why they are a primary focus of the pro-life movement in targeting them. Also, you give them your taxes, especially if you are a taxpayer in the state of California. If you have not been to the state house, just about every legislator's door has a "We Stand with Planned Parenthood" poster right on the outside of it. Your legislature is practically owned by Planned Parenthood, and your taxes go straight into them. In last year, Planned Parenthood received over $616 million in U.S. taxpayer funding. That makes up almost 40% of their annual revenue. So even those of us who are avidly pro-life, we are sending money to Planned Parenthood because of our taxes. They also drive the abortion narrative. They spend millions and millions of dollars on branding and marketing for the abortion industry. And honestly, they do this really well. They run the narrative. They talk about it more than anyone. And so they're the owners of the discussion on abortion issues, on reproductive rights, on women's health care. And it's unfortunate, but that's where their money goes, and they own it. So it's up to us to be the countering voice to the narrative that they paint, especially of so-called health care. These are just some of their posts I took off of their Instagram that they posted recently. And you can see the kind of narratives that they're pushing. Abortion is healthcare. Abortion is essential. They list other feel-good types of services, when we know that abortion is their #1 service. And oddly enough, they sandwich it in between all these other services, knowing that it's not as fun to talk about and fun to advertise. So they make it seem like they are offering just incredible resources to anyone and everyone, especially women. I thought this was interesting because they had a post about sexual education in schools and for the youth, and then their very next post was about sex toys. So I don't know about you, but I don't think kids need to be learning their sexual education from people who are promoting that kind of thing as well. It's insane. They also run with the narrative that abortion is safe and legal. They love to use these terms. They
I'm left with a 9, so I left like a 9.5.
sorry. But they run with this, and again, they drive the narrative with those two things, that it is safe and it is legal. But they are really scandal ridden. We know, especially here in California, about the selling of baby body parts and David Daleidon's whole case with that, and how he went undercover and exposed them for that. They've been caught covering statutory rape and sex trafficking. They have been caught cheating the Medicaid system. They have a racist and eugenicist past, and honestly, the list goes on. But going back to the fact that they say safe and legal nonstop, they are not a safe facility, and abortion is certainly not a safe procedure. Unsafe laws lead to unsafe abortion facilities, and that's common sense. I gathered a few, and actually several incidents that have occurred within Planned Parenthoods. But again, they run with the safe and legal, and here are just some examples of them not being safe. The Planned Parenthood of Missouri, it was recorded that in 10 years, at least 71 ambulances had been called to their Planned Parenthood in St. Louis. And in addition, the Missouri Department of Health found multiple staff members handling bodily fluids and failing to practice basic hand washing procedures. This is where the previous president of Planned Parenthood, Leanna Wen, used to work. Planned Parenthood of Chicago, Tonya Reeves, was a patient there, and she bled to death at this facility following a botched abortion. Her procedure began at 11 a.m. and 911 wasn't even called until 4:30 p.m. Planned Parenthood's reaction to this incident was that they were shocked and saddened upon learning about a tragic development at a nearby hospital. While our hearts go out to the loved ones of this patient, basically they didn't admit any blame or any fault, and they weren't held responsible. A patient at the Rocky Mountains Planned Parenthood was forced to undergo an abortion without anesthesia. Following the procedure, the hospital found that the abortion had been botched and baby body parts were left inside of her. And the list goes on, and I can send you a bunch more of these, but the point is that they are not safe, and their facilities are not safe. AUL had a report, the Americans United for Life. They created a report that compiled failed inspections of Planned Parenthood, and the most common health and safety violation was failure to ensure a safe and sanitary environment. Your local McDonald's has to pass regular inspections and has to meet every single health and safety inspection, or they will be closed immediately. Yet, Planned Parenthoods, where they are operating on women, they don't have to follow these standards, nor could most of them. Other violations included failure to properly train staff, failure to handle medications, failure to keep patient records, and the list goes on. But most importantly, the point that I want to drive home is that you are their target. 44% of abortions are performed on women 18 to 24 years old. That is college aged, obviously. 79% of Planned Parenthood facilities are located within 5 miles of a college or university campus. But in California now, since the passage of SB 24, your public universities are now going to be abortion facilities with the provision of RU 486 on campus, which is being mandated by the government. And I just wanted to go into some Planned Parenthood myths and common arguments, because especially during an election year, we're hearing a lot of these things, and I want to give you guys some of the arguments back to these things. So most importantly, I think, and we hear this a lot, if Planned Parenthood were defunded, where would women go? Even if Planned Parenthood were shut down completely today, where would women go? Here's another video, but the purpose of this is the president of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, was on the news and was stating that they serve medically underserved communities, and with basically running with the narrative that without Planned Parenthood, women would have nowhere to go for their well woman exams. They wouldn't have anywhere to go for basic health care needs. And she referred to a facility, a Planned Parenthood facility in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then basically we myth busted that.
Went there.
And the truth is, there are about 15 healthcare facilities within miles of that Planned Parenthood that she named, and that's not uncommon. I'll give you guys some resources where you can type in your zip code or your city, and you can find all of the healthcare facilities near you, and trust me, they outnumber Planned Parenthood by a lot, and I'll explain that in a minute. But who are these facilities? Federally qualified health centers and pregnancy resource centers are two of the most important. They don't provide abortions, but they do provide low-end services, and services that far outnumber the other resources that Planned Parenthoods offer. So what is a federally qualified health center? They serve low-income patients on a sliding scale. They serve uninsured, and they meet high health standards, because if they didn't, they would be shut down immediately. And they can also transport patients, which is important in low-income communities. Pregnancy resource centers are local nonprofit organizations that provide compassionate support to women and men faced with unplanned pregnancy situations. They offer things like pregnancy option counseling, free resources and services, pregnancy testing, STD testing, post-decision support, and again, they do not provide abortions. So the comparison in number, federally qualified health centers operate at over 12,000 facilities across the nation. Pregnancy resource centers have almost 3,000, and there are about, I think exactly, 600 Planned Parenthood locations across the nation. So what does that mean? When you hear people say that Planned Parenthood is the only place they can go for their health care, it's just false. It's just because they own the marketing, like I said earlier, and they run the narrative. So people do think of Planned Parenthood when they think of healthcare options, and it's just because they've built up that narrative so well, even though they know it's not true. So you need to know these kind of stats and what these locations offer and the locations near you, so you can refer people to them. The comparison of services between Planned Parenthood facilities, even the ones that operate at the highest capacity, compared to federally qualified health centers, they just provide a fraction of the things that FQHCs offer. And you can see the list on the screen. Planned Parenthood does not provide mammograms. Not a single one, not a single day in their existence have they ever provided mammograms. And for women's health care, that's probably the number one thing that when breast cancer, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month right now. Breast cancer is a huge killer of women, and mammograms are the number one preventative measure to that disease. But again, they outnumber Planned Parenthood and their services by a lot. The patients that they serve is another really important statistic. FQHCs only serve about 25 million plus patients, and Planned Parenthoods serve about 2.4 million. So what this means is if every single Planned Parenthood closed tomorrow, they just didn't open their doors again, FQHCs would only have to take in about 2 new patients a week to absorb their clients. Only 2 patients. And then the health standards, going back to that, we have more incidents. Washington State Planned Parenthood can inspect and certify themselves based on their state laws. California, abortion facilities are exempt from general building code standards and basic standards for patient care, equipment, and staffing. In Connecticut, abortion facilities are inspected every 3 years, and salons are inspected annually. There's no set standard for health and safety inspections across the board, which leaves rooms for these very lax laws that lead to extremely dangerous conditions in facilities. Some states, they aren't inspected at all, or they aren't required to release any information, and the reporting laws are minuscule for Planned Parenthood facilities. FQHCs are regularly inspected and are required to meet extremely high health standards, the same ones that you would have your local hospitals having to meet. So another common argument we hear is, what about the good that Planned Parenthood does? And again, number one thing is there are other nonviolent organizations and facilities that offer those services, and those are the places I just named. But abortions are on the incline for Planned Parenthood, while the rest of their services are declining, and that's based on their own annual reports. And we put it into a graph here. Pap tests are down 75%, breast exams down 66%, prenatal care is down 31%, and HPV treatments are down 59%. And abortions are up over 11,000 since last year. Their government funding is up to $563.8 million, more than any other year. And patients are down from 3 million in 2011 to 2.4 million. So the good services, even if they do offer them, it's not their focus. People along with that comment will say abortion is only a tiny fraction of what they do, 3%. And in reality, 96.6% of their services to pregnant women is abortions. That means 100 women who walk into Planned Parenthood pregnant, only about 3 of them will walk out with their babies. And how did they come up with this 3% number if that's true? They service bundle, which means a pregnant woman goes into Planned Parenthood, they will give them STD treatment. They will have already had some type of contraception 60% of the time being given to that woman. They author other different testing, screenings, ultrasound, and those all count as services for this one woman before she gets the abortion. So that's how they bump those numbers up to make it look like it's such a tiny fraction of what they do, when in reality it is the number one thing that they offer, and it's the only profitable thing that they offer. So of course they want those numbers to be increasing. Leanna Wen, the previous president of Planned Parenthood, put on Twitter that their core mission was providing, protecting, and expanding access to abortion and reproductive health care. If abortion is only 3%, that makes absolutely no sense. People talk about Planned Parenthood providing, this is so frustrating to me, providing non-biased options counseling for pregnant women. And this just baffles me because you don't have to meet quotas for something that you're not biased towards. And Planned Parenthood has quotas that they have to meet for numbers of abortions. So if you're low on your quota, or if you know that the numbers are high, which they're already always increasing, you're going to be biased in your counseling if that's the thing that you're profiting off of. And we have testimonies from abortion workers like Abby Johnson, Myra Rodriguez, and people who have worked inside the facilities and know that the counseling is not counseling. It's pressure to get people to have abortions. And what about birth control? So first of all, if people do have to have birth control, there are other places to get it, other non-violent places, but Planned Parenthood provides the poorest quality and most faulty birth control. In 2005, their condoms were ranked amongst the lowest quality on the market by Consumer Reports, and there are other reports with the same kind of findings on birth control pills and whatnot. And I mean, if you think it through logically, it makes sense because birth control is how they build the relationships with women who are sexually active in the first place. And then when the birth control fails, where will these women go? They end up in the walls of Planned Parenthood. Also, we have a whole nother training on hormonal birth control and how dangerous it is for women. It's ranked as a class 1 carcinogen along with asbestos and smoking tobacco. And Planned Parenthood is the type of place that encourages a daily regimen of hormonal birth control. And it's just completely destructive to women's bodies. And I could talk on that alone all day, but there are a lot of consequences of birth control on the body, on relationships, on the environment even. And again, we can go into that more deeper in another training, which we do also offer. But where can you find real help? This is important. If you take nothing else away from this talk today, know these places, know these resources to refer women to, or people who are getting any type of services from Planned Parenthood, and get them to these other facilities. Find a healthcenter.hrsa.gov will direct you to federally qualified health centers near you. It tells you all the things that they offer, and optionline.org will refer you to all of the pregnancy resource centers in your area. Optionline.org is more for abortion-minded women, people who are pregnant and just need help, lower income women who need help and are facing pregnancy alone or even with a partner. But optionline.org is an awesome resource. I use it so much. And then the FQHC site is more for people who are going to Planned Parenthood for any type of services. And this is a great way to say, you know, there are other non-violent places that offer these things, and they offer them on sliding scales. They offer free, cheaper services. And these are places that don't provide abortions, and your money goes directly to them and not to the provision of ending life. So that's pretty much. I want to open it up to questions. I kind of went through it quickly, but like I said, the most important thing is knowing where to refer people to, knowing the statistics on Planned Parenthood and the fact that they are not the only providers of healthcare options for women. And that narrative has been so in people's faces that even pro-life people don't know that Planned Parenthood doesn't actually provide mammograms, or they don't service as many people as you think. I see things go viral all the time on Twitter, TikTok, whatever, about people saying, I don't know why people bash Planned Parenthood because this is a place that helped me recognize a lump on my breast or something like that when I had no money to go. Well, those sound all great and dandy, but these are still facilities that operate on the business structure of profiting off of lost lives and the manipulation of women. So there are a lot of stats that are good to know, and pregnancy resource centers are like the greatest organizations ever. So even, first of all, optionline.org, know it by heart, don't ever forget it, but type in your own zip code and look at the centers that are near you. So if you ever do come across someone who's pregnant and vulnerable, you can refer to them and know this center is near us and these are the things that they offer and they have all these free services. Because if not, they're going to go right into the arms of an organization that owns the marketing on reproductive rights, on feminine care, everything. So you have to be the countering voice out there. Do you have any questions? Someone said that they've heard that our taxes do not go towards abortion services. Okay, so because of the Hyde Amendment, which I don't know if you've heard of that, the Hyde Amendment pretty much states that taxpayer funding can't go directly to abortions. But the thing is, if money is going to an abortion facility, even if they write up the numbers, all good and dandy, your money is still going to an abortion facility. So they're taking other money that would be spent on things like marketing, whatever. They're using taxpayer money for that, and then the rest of their money goes to abortions. So it's kind of a loophole for Planned Parenthood. It's a great talking point for them to say that we don't get taxpayer funding, we don't use that for abortions, but the organization itself, you can see how much money they get from taxes. So yes, taxpayer funding of abortion is very real still today.
That was really super helpful. I learned a lot. Matthew, I'm glad you recorded it. I hope you'll make that available to us. I'd like to have this recording. It was very informative. I have a little bit of a tangent. You talked about something that was passed in California that they can do abortions on our campus now. Can you tell me what that is? I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Senate Bill 24 passed this last year, early in the year. And what that does is it mandates that our CSUs and our UCs have to provide the abortion pill RU486 on campus in their campus health centers. And first it was vetoed a couple years ago, but then they rewrote the bill under a new number, which is just what they do. And Gavin Newsom promised to pass it through. So it's already in the works because it passed, but in 2022, 2, I believe, it actually starts the implementation phase. So all of our public universities and colleges in the state of California will be forced to provide the chemical abortion pill on campus.
Wow, thank you very much. I did not know that, and that's awful. So, yeah, and again, thank you. It was very informative, and I am going to take my zip code and look that up.
Yes, and I'll send out a 1-pager of just some of the stats that I shared, because I know it's overwhelmingly full of statistics, but I can send that out today. Any other questions?
Does Students for Life have any plans to help counter those abortion pills on campus when that gets implemented from now?
Yes, so obviously right now we're very focused on election, but I'm on the chemical abortion task force team, and we've created, but not launched, so you're in the secret squad. But anyway, next year we'll be launching a platform called This is Chemical Abortion, and the purpose is to combat that through an educational platform basically, and we'll be reaching out to especially your school and other public campuses in California with a state strategy plan and different levels, different tiers of what we're going to be working on. So we'll start that in the new year, pretty much right after the election. That's our next thing, because not only is that happening in California, but now it's starting in New York, New Jersey, other very, very pro-abortion states. So yes, we will be launching initiatives and queuing you guys into that, and you'll basically be our combative army against these crazy state laws. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on to talk about this. I think it's one of the most important, well, probably, yeah, one of the most important things we can talk about, just because people are so brainwashed by thinking Planned Parenthood is this nice, fluffy, sweet organization, and they operate really, they're really shady, and obviously they're the #1 abortion provider. So strategically, we need to be able to talk about that. You are so welcome. It was nice to meet you, Wendy. But if no one else has any questions, we can end it early, and I'll send out the stat sheet, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Personally, I'm going to put my email in the chat, so you guys can reach out to me anytime you need it. Have a good day, everyone.